Right. Yes, you bloody well right. Oh, Tony, I think it's time we get this Mammoth Jamma going. You're good, though. I'm going to be doing a little advertising. Hey, everybody. 2218's Attitude for Gratitude weekly podcast. You want to turn your phone down? It picks up on here, I believe. I don't know. You're good, though. So tonight we've got Tony, a returning guest of the show. I've had him on once in the past, him and Benton, but I was very sick when they were on, and I don't recall the show we had, and I believe we even had to cut it short, too, because of that. Either way, he's back in the house, and we're going to dive into some talk about the journey, the big bad journey. Before that occurs, I want to talk to you guys and let you know if you're struggling, please reach out. Multiple people follow on this thread, whether it's this, YouTube, or what have you. I have you on mute, so for now you won't hear yourself. Matter of fact, you're out. You're good. Here's the thing. If you're struggling, please reach out. I'm going to put my phone number on here. If you're not comfortable utilizing the network here or utilizing other people on here to ask for some help, if you're struggling, just reach out to me directly. I can help you get linked up with a meeting or maybe some medical facility or something. I'm no doctor, but we've had enough people on here where we can utilize some of the things that we've talked about. And what I'm getting at is you're worth the fight, man. If you're struggling, please just reach out. You're worth it. I'll help remind you more than once tonight about that. You are loved. If no one's told you that today, let me be the first. I love you. All right. Now, with all that said, we've got the Ride for Recovery coming up, guys. It's one of the biggest things we do here at 2218. It's the 5th annual Ride for Recovery. And what that looks like is exactly this. Me grabbing it off the wall and saying, 5th annual Ride for Recovery and all-day music jam, Saturday, June 24th. This is a sober fundraiser that this club puts on, and it's to help keep the doors open. End of the day, this club, it strives on donations and memberships and events like this. So it's also a great time. It's such a blast. And I always make it real clear that if you don't ride a motorcycle, it means nothing. This is more of an all-day party than it is anything else, with the benefit of being able to go out on a group ride in the morning. The morning looks like this. 8 a.m. over at the St. Paul Harley. Kickstands up at 10. Brad B., who will be on the show here shortly, he does a breakfast out there, and it's a wonderful. It's like $5, and it's pancakes and sausage and some juice or coffee or milk or something to that effect. And we hang out there, do a little fellowshipping. I'll be having the show from the parking lot there at the St. Paul Harley. If it's like last year, I've been just telling everyone that you get a discount, but no one's confirmed it with me. But last year they did like a 10% discount of all St. Paul Harley gear. So that's pretty cool. At 9:45, they do a safety meeting. We say some prayers over the motorcycles, and then away they go. And it's pretty cool. If you've never seen 100+ motorcycles pulling out or showing up at a club, it's a pretty cool sight. I own a motorcycle, but I don't go on the run. I've got obligations to be doing the podcast. So I'll have the show from the morning at the St. Paul Harley with multiple riders hopping on. Last year, I think we did like 50 different riders hopped on the show, them and their significant others or co-riders. Then back here at 2218, the festivities kick off at 12 p.m. Bikes come rolling in. There's Zoo Factors presenting multiple bands that day. They take the stage at 5 p.m. If you've been here before, you've heard them. But they're a pretty big name, a pretty big local name band. Zoo Factor is excellent. We have a barbecue that day. Band Happy Wednesday, Lucy Liners, the All-Star Jam. We have a featured speaker. We do auctions, raffles, like 50-50 drawings. We have a dunk tank where I got suckered into it last year. I'm sure I will this year. But it's all to help raise money for this club and to keep these doors open. So you can get a wristband in advance for $20 or it's 25 day of. If you have any ideas for it, if you want to be part of it, participate in it, I will get some names up here on the under the comments section, and you can reach out to them, or just reach out to me if you're interested in it. Or if you want to donate to it, same thing. Just reach out. Come on down to the club. The other thing is this club does run by volunteers. They are the grease that keeps the wheels spinning at this place. That's who you'll see when you walk into the front door. That's who's cleaning the place. That's who's upkeeping the yard and the parking lot. It's volunteers. That's what this club's about. And if you want to be part of that, we implore you to come on down and be part of that. The other side of that is if, like, for community service hours, things like that, you can come down here and get those hours fulfilled. Other than that, like, come check this out. Come be a member of this club. It has a lot to offer. It's a good place. Like, it's where I'm doing this podcast from. And it's one of the only places that never closed during COVID. So I feel grateful for this place. The other thing about this place is they do monthly dances. We've got an April Fool's dance coming up, and that is on the 1st. It's $5 at the door. It starts at 9 p.m. It's another sober, fun event that happens here. We talk about a lot of things in recovery, fun and sober, clean. It's just we explain how we do that now, and it happens all the time. And this club does a lot of things like that, like I'm talking about, Ride for Recovery, like the Pat Cronin birthday stuff, and these dances. And I think we're getting karaoke back. Lots of big stuff. There's new board, a lot of new members on the board, and there's a lot of moves being made. Hang on. There we go. It gets so loud doing that. Also, tons and tons of different meetings that take place here at 2218. Tons of different fellowships. I believe there's Narcotics Anonymous. There's, of course, Alcoholics Anonymous. I think they still have CMA. They do Al-Anon. I'm not going to go through the list of all the meetings. If you come down here, there's a list of meetings right outside the door when you get here. Otherwise, come on in, and there's a list of the different meetings. You can hop on the website. You can, after the show, of course, not now, but you can back out and look on, just navigate through their Facebook page or go to their website, 2218alano.org. But we do have some newer meetings that I'll talk about real quick. We do have the noon meeting. We've always had a noon meeting here, and this is another one that came in. It's called High Noon. It's in the auditorium every single day at noon. So come check that out if you're looking for a noon meeting. The other newer meeting that they have started, it is called Friends of Dorothy. And this is a LGBTQ plus meeting. Not sure what all the acronyms are, but I can tell you this, it's a meeting that is welcoming to whoever. So if you're going to meetings and you're not feeling comfortable there for whatever reasons, come give it a shot. You might find what you're looking for there. Just don't let that type of stuff get in the way of you finding some recovery. Nowadays, there's so many options out there, and this is just another one. That starts when the show starts at 8 p.m. every Friday in the annex, I believe. It does not. Yeah, down in the annex. So come check it out. It's supposed to be a great meeting. That's the other thing. If you're looking to start a meeting, they've got some vacancies here with multiple different times. So come check that out. Reach out to me or I think Bobby, the new president. There's lots of options for growth when it comes to this club. And if you have ideas or want to be part of that, come on down. Check it out. Jane. She's the one who filled our cups with coffee tonight. She's the one who fills my belly with some good eats every other third or something Sunday. Rob, my buddy Rob, came down here like, I wanted to work on the podcast and work on some stuff. So, and he wanted to get some breakfast. And I was like, I know they're serving breakfast here at the club, and I'd never had it. I just didn't want to go meet them, and I wanted to work on the show stuff. So he showed up. I'm like, yeah, breakfast downstairs. Wasn't looking forward to it. Went down there, best pancakes I've had in, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And I think it was just like Hungry Jack or Kodiak or something. But what I'm getting at is she makes awesome food. I think Tim was in there cooking too. But come on down, check it out. Jane's Cafe. I believe she did send me a menu for what's next on April 1st. From 5:30 to 8 p.m., we have soft-shelled tacos with all the fixings, onion, shredded lettuce, salsa, sour cream, tomatoes. all sorts of good stuff. So anytime she's cooking, it's going to be good and you're going to get full. There's always paired with something to drink and a dessert and a snack type stuff. So come check that out. Phoenix NA. They are starting a game night here the second and fourth Sunday of every month. And I think they just started. They've had one. It was a decent turnout. But if you're looking for some fun stuff to do, come check that out. I don't talk a lot about the different meetings because there's so many different meetings that go on here, and we could spend another hour about that. But I like to just kind of share about the variety of different options that they have at this club, and especially these gatherings, these fun fellowship type events. I know in early recovery, I didn't know what I was going to be doing, and if there still was anything fun to do. But stuff like that kind of showed me that there was fun stuff to do. Okay, I think that's enough advertising. We're going to hop on into it. I'm going to get onto these comments. I'm going to throw my name or my number down there. And like I said, this show is interactive, meaning interact, guys. If you have a question for my guest, if there's something you think I missed something, or you need me to critique what I got going on here, or you want to see a conversation going another way, or you have ideas, this is where you do it. Just post whatever your comment is. But what I'm getting at is if you're not comfortable, because your name will pop up on there when you put it in the comments. I'm throwing my number on here, 612-791-9942. You can just text me, and I will address whatever questions or concerns you have. So, with that said, let's finally get after. Tony.
Yeah, man.
Welcome back to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
So far, so good.
All right. So, I was kind of warming you up before we got started. I'm like, hey, what did I ask? Is there anything you don't want me talking about? And you're like, oh, open book. And the reason why was because the last time you guys were on the show, that's when I think I was just coming over COVID and it came back. And whatever the case was, is I got really sick and I don't remember the show at all. And I didn't think it was fair to you guys, you or Benton, that we had a show and I don't know what we even went over. So if you don't mind, could we kind of just start from the beginning again? And usually, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. You want to tell us kind of a little bit about your story? And then I pulled up our last show and there was a few questions that came in that I know I didn't ask you guys.
All right.
Because it showed, two were on my phone. But there's some of our standard questions we ask, but I will be asking you some of those. I'll try not to interrupt when you share your story. But, just like a little synopsis of how'd you find, what's your life like today, and how'd you get to this?
It says it in How It Works, and we all know that. I hope that we all do. Page 58, chapter 5.
In that, what is it? Is that in the big book?
That would be the big book,
okay,
yes.
All right.
The book that I love so much. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I try not to keep this garden variety, but I do want to be accurate, and I do want to adequately and accurately explain those three things, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. What it was like, I think, first of all, let me go back, and I think this is so important, long before I ever had my first drink. I am the guy that has always felt and known that something inside him was broken, but I could never nail down what it was, and I could never then have a chance to try to fix it because I couldn't identify what was broken. Many years later, I found out that those are called character defects.
That's what you mean when you say you felt broken, or like an outsider? Or?
No, something was wrong. I felt like something was wrong on the inside. I felt like, even long before I took my first drink, I had all these, what do I want to say, moral standards and certain things that I felt that I was up to, but could never live up to. Things that I want, the way that I wanted to lead my life and could not do it. And so I always knew something was broken. And you know, I think I'm like a lot of other people. It's easy to blame a substandard upbringing or other people or other things on my alcoholism. But the truth is that I can't do that because it was me, and
Right.
I learned about that in the big book as well. But anyway, I think you know what was it like? You know, I'm of such an age. First of all, I started drinking in high school like so many other people. In fact, well, it was even a little before that. My very first time I ever got drunk was on Halloween night in eighth grade, was 1979.
The year I was born.
And I, in the space of 10 seconds, my whole life changed, and everything inside me that felt broken went away that very first time I drank a beer. And I remember how that felt. I remember like it was yesterday, how important that feeling was to have this sense of brokenness that just fell away from me. And for the first time in my life, I felt pretty decent. I felt
This was eighth grade.
in Halloween night, eighth grade. Yes.
Okay.
And so then, of course, you know, once again, you go on through high school and things. I drank as much as, you know, when you're in eighth and ninth and 10th grade, alcohol is not that readily available. It was available from time to time, and I took it because I liked that sense of ease and comfort. I liked what it did for me, and it started, you know, to progress as it always does. I would drink a little bit more, and one of my, I want to bring up page 30 in the big book now. It talks a lot about control on page 30. And one of the things that really helped me into recovery was taking a look at my definition of control. Because I'm the guy that in high school I would think to myself, if I can just go out with my friends tonight and just have 7 beers, I'll be in control. Okay, fast forward 6 or 8 months. Okay, if I can just have 10 or 12 beers and 2 shots, I'll be in control. Okay, now fast forward another 6 or 8 months. Okay, if I can just drink a half a bottle of bourbon and not have the cops chase me, then I'll be in control. So you can see where that direction was carrying me. So very early on, I knew I was in trouble with alcohol. Although it did take many, many years for my life to become unmanageable and many, many years for me to acknowledge my powerlessness over alcohol. But that day eventually did come. Anyway, trying to be sensible about this and not to drag this out into oblivion.
Oh, that's what I'm here for. And don't you go. No, seriously, don't worry about time. And what I'll do is try not to do like I'm doing now, is interrupting and cutting off. But I'm going to try to take notes because there's certain things we'll revisit. But don't limit yourself. You're serious.
All right.
As comfortable as you are, shared, tell your story. I've had people come on and tell an hour and a half story, and it's up to you. And I respect however you want to share it. So,
Well, I'm good with that. I'll just keep going then. You know, I did all the same ridiculous things that high school kids do when they're drinking. Although, and let me also add that somehow, thankfully enough, on at least 3 occasions in high school, me and my friends were driving around drinking beers, and the cops would stop us. And back in those days, they would just take the beer away from you and say, "Tony, go home." You know, that ship has sailed.
those days are long.
You know, we all know that doesn't do that anymore. But you know, that was in the early '80s, and times have changed. Also, I remember how excited I was in those days. There's a small local supermarket back in small town South Dakota where I went to high school with it. And we were always so happy because every other weekend they would have a case of Old Milwaukee Light on sale for $2.99.
That's so crazy.
And we were so happy. We get so happy because then all that had to happen is me and a couple of my friends had to come up with a couple of bucks each, and we get 2 cases of beer, and it's like we were in heaven. So anyway, and that went on, and also let me throw this into the mix at about this time too. I once like everybody else when I'm in high school, I kind of developed certain aspirations and goals and things that I had kind of planned that my life would become. And, and it's pretty stereotypical, good education and a wife and a house and a white picket fence and a couple of cats or whatever, and living happily ever after. And I had this plan in place for how my life was going to unfold. Yeah, more on that later. So anyway, I first let me say this: the education thing didn't pan out all that great. I flunked out of college 3 times from drinking, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and somehow still managed to go on and have a fair amount of success in other directions. I don't have any real explanation for that other than maybe luck. But I went into the car business and I sold cars and I was really good at it and it served me very well.
Yeah, I'm gonna bug you about that a little later. There's some questions about that.
Yeah, that's fine. And it served me very, very well for many, many years. And it gave me a significant income and empowered me to go various places around the world and do a lot of stuff. I did a lot of stuff, not just in the drinking world, but that was certainly a part of it as the years went by. And once again, as the years went by, the progressiveness of alcoholism has its way with me, and I sparing you all the details. I think during the course, I drank for 22 years total. And it wasn't. It was only the last 5 really that were awful. And the last year and a half was the all day, every day when that finally set in. And but the first part of it, I was still hanging my hat on, even though I knew I was in trouble with alcohol and I knew I had trouble controlling it. It's like, well, that's I pay my bills on time. I got a big house. I got stuff. I'm not the guy laying in the street corner drinking out of a paper bag and eating out of a dumpster, so I can't possibly be an alcoholic.
Right.
Come to find out later that that's not true, but at that time, that was my train of thought. So anyway, the arrests started to happen, and I was totally okay with that. Drunk and disorderly, public intoxication, DWI. I could care less because I had enough money to just throw money at it, and the problem would go away. And I was also, it's like, well, everybody else is doing this too, or at least all the friends that I ran with did. And so I wasn't too worried about it. But eventually, as the drinking got worse, the consequences became more frequent and more severe. Not just legal, but family, from work, from everything that you can imagine, everything that you guys already know what I'm talking about. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until eventually, the day came when I couldn't make it through a day without drinking, and eventually the day came where I would wake up in the middle of the night, and the only way I was going to go back to sleep is with 4 or 5 shots of bourbon.
That was in about that last year and a half, or was that
about
okay.
The last year and a half,
Right.
And it continued to get worse and worse, and
Like the shakes type of deal in the morning.
obviously, yeah,
Yep.
shakes.
Okay.
And if I expected to make it through the day, I'd have to have some booze before I even went to work in the morning. And you know, also let me throw in also at this time that during this time, you know, the obsession was on me so hard that when I would get to work every single day, all I would think about is what do I have to get out of my way so I can get to the bar? What do I have to make happen? And what do I have to have transpire and start pushing people out of the way and manipulating and being really a very unkind person to get things out of my way so I could get to the bar. And then that last year, let me just say this. I lived in Kansas City at the time. I was working at a Volkswagen dealership down there. And from the dealerships that I worked at, if you leave the parking lot and go turn right and go exactly 3 miles and turn left and go 2 blocks, you're at my house.
Okay.
And in that 3 miles, there was 3 bars. And right across the street from the dealership was a convenience store. And in Kansas City and Missouri, you can buy booze at any convenience store.
Okay.
All of them. So I would go and I would get 2 pints of bourbon every single day after work. And by the time I got to that first bar, about a mile from the dealership, that first pint would be gone. And then I would go in there and I would drink for a while. And then I would go to the second bar. And then I would never remember the rest of the night. And somehow I would make it home. And somehow, if I was lucky, there was 4 or 5 shots of bourbon left in that second pint for the next morning. So, I mean, you can see where this all ended up. I mean, it was a disaster. Everything was awful. I think I've been to detox a total. And it's weird because, like in Kansas City and Missouri, then in South Dakota too, they got their different plans and different things that they do in detox centers down there. But if you added up all the times that I've been into detox, I think it's 55 days.
Ooh.
And
Detox 55 days.
well, it's at 2 or 3 days at a time.
Yeah, okay.
Right, you know, and that's a lot of detox time. And then finally, and you know what? During that time, when I was, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 25. I did not sober up until I was 35. And during that 10 years, that's when I was hanging my hat on being successful, and I couldn't be an alcoholic because I did shit right. But I had been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I would never get serious about it.
Okay.
And my reward for that, of course, was 10 more years of drunkenness and 10 more years of cops and 10 more years of trouble and 10 more years of agony. The big book says alcoholic torture, and I completely identify with that. Till eventually,
Would you say there was health stuff because you're drinking in those last 10 years?
I had some health issues, but it had nothing to do
Okay.
with, yeah.
I wasn't sure. I was going to attempt to ask that route, but we'll get into some of that later too.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I eventually, you know, during that 10 years, I'd have various lengths of time that I would stay away from alcohol for whatever reason. Either the cops are on my ass, my boss was pissed off, or family, or whatever it was. I could stay away from alcohol for a while. But sooner or later, Tony's drinking again, and I don't know about everybody else in the world, but if Tony's drinking, sooner or later the cops are coming, because that's just the way I am. I mean, and you know what? To be fair, it's not awful stuff. It's not horrible things. It's nothing more than public intoxication, drunk and disorderly. You know, it was 2 a.m. one time, and I came out of a blackout, and I'm standing in the middle of a 24-hour grocery store, pissing my pants, trying to buy beer at 2 a.m, and they won't sell it to you after 11 at night in a grocery store.
And this is you coming out of a blackout.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, it was stuff like that. Right. You guys all know. I'm not telling you anything new. So anyway, finally the day comes, and that last year probably, every single day I was so horribly distraught and so horribly unhappy in my life that I was constantly think about every single day, how can I take my own life without disgracing my family? How can I do it? And I was like a variety of ideas, of course, I think that everybody else comes up with. But for me, it was going to be a lethal dose of insulin.
Okay.
And, but I didn't possess the courage to make that come true, thankfully enough.
Yeah, thank God. Yes.
So then and this is kind of an interesting deal about what happened. And I hope you guys have heard enough about what it was like, because I have.
You're thorough. Yeah.
Anyway,
Time on that.
what it was like, here's what happened. I came out of a blackout again in a detox center again. And I'm laying there in that bed. And it was a kind of a detox center whereby there's no bars on the window, but you're wearing orange. So I knew it was a detox center.
Some shape or form.
Yeah, and I had the gear on, and I'm laying there. And for some reason, oddly enough, I was not very hungover. Although I knew I was I couldn't remember much about getting there to that place the night before.
Where typically, being where you're at, this would have been a I'm so hungover moment.
Generally,
Okay.
and me scrambling for my, hopefully, what's a half a pint of bourbon laying
Right.
around left over from the night before.
Okay.
And I finally realized I'd had enough exposure to AA, and I'd seen people in AA that seemed to have turned their lives around. And it seemed to have worked for them. But I'm finally laying in that bed, and I finally realized I'm going to drink myself to death, or I am going to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and do anything they ask me to do, come what may. And I made up my mind at that moment. And and on the bottom of page 42 in the big book, it says, as soon as I made up my mind to go through with the process, I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. And that's exactly what happened to me. The very instant that I made up my mind, laying in that bed, to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and do anything they asked me to do, I had the feeling that my alcoholic problem was relieved. And I made that decision to go to AA and to stay there and to do anything that they asked.
Would you say that was, in a sense, some form of, like, we hear that gift of desperation, but this doesn't even sound like it was a desperation, or can you relate that situation to that statement at all, even?
Well, my desperation had played out over the previous year with constant thoughts of suicide. And
Right.
my life was such a mental train wreck. And you know what the truth is? I had money.
Right.
I could have kept drinking. I could have kept living my life and doing what I was doing and continuing on the way I was, but it was all what was going on in my head that I couldn't stand anymore.
Right.
Because I was totally ready to eat a bullet, and I would have been totally okay with it.
Okay.
And is that the gift of desperation? I presume.
Real quick, anyone, we're talking about some heavy stuff here, and not to derail this, but if you are struggling, I put one of the hotlines on here, so if you're ever having any thoughts of that and you have no one to reach out to, utilize that. Dial 988. This is Tony's story, and this is just part of it, and this is what we go through, but you're about to hear about a solution here soon. Please reach out, though, if you are struggling. So you have this. I also wanted to ask, and I wanted it to be during this time. Was this a spiritual awakening for you? Or, because the way you describe it is once that, you did word it perfectly out of the book, how you related that. But some have told that similar stories where they saw it as like the spiritual awakening. Can you?
I didn't identify it at that time.
Okay.
And
that
even
time?
now, all these years later, I don't know that if that was a spiritual awakening. I don't think so. I think some people call it a moment of clarity. And
Okay.
is that a synonymous term? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't at that time, and maybe after all these years, I still don't know that it was a spiritual awakening. I think that my spiritual awakening came in step 12 after I completed the first 11 steps, and that's a different part of the story. But
So you have this. Will you repeat that again? In quote the page, bottom of the page. What happened?
right, it's on page, it's bottom of page 42, and the guy said, as soon as I made up my mind to go through with the process, and he's talking about steps. As soon as I made up my mind, see, he made a decision right there. As soon as I made up my mind to go through with the process, I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved, as in fact it proved to be. And
Worded so perfectly.
see it, and you know what? Just to finish that morning off, I got up out of that bed. First of all, and I was a changed man at that moment. And I walked out of that bedroom that I was in the detox center, walked down the hall, looked into the receiving ward of this detox center, and looked to my left at the TV just in time to see the second plane smash into the World Trade Center. So those two things happened to occur on the same day, but they were completely independent of each other.
Right.
But
You
that's
didn't even know that.
no, I had not even known that had happened, and but that's my sobriety date. I've been sober since September 11, 2001.
Congrats. It's a great start.
Right, yeah, and but it is those two events were absolutely independent of each other. And let me also say this, and this is probably more important than anything: had I not maintained my decision, had I not lived up to my decision to go to AA and do anything they asked, I would have drank myself to death 20 years ago. And I don't think there's any doubt about that. Not in my mind.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
That's, yes.
I would have drank myself to death in some way, shape, or form. And that's how it would have ended. And now I say the same shit all the time. So sorry, trying not to cuss. I really am. I'm really trying.
You're a church boy on the show so far. In retrospect,
I've been saying the same. That was what it was like, and what happened was me laying in that bed making a decision. And to me, that's what I'm always looking for when I see new people at a meeting, when I hear somebody new. That's what I'm looking for. I don't give a shit what it was like because I know what that's like.
right.
Okay, I want to know what happens. To me, that's where something changes in a guy. That's where a person changes and something happens. And what it's like now, I've been saying this for a long, long time. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it till I'm dead. I haven't been arrested in 21 years. My family's been happy to see me for 21 years. I've managed my money well for 21 years. I haven't been fired from a job in 21 years. I hope you guys can all see where I'm going with this, because it's absolutely true. And this, that's what it's like now. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I'll take what it's like now any day. I tell everybody all the time that or not all the time, but regularly at AA meetings, I just tell them, listen, man, this is working for me. I'm going to come back and do it again tomorrow. And it's served me well for a good long time. I intend to keep doing it. And I see no reason to lay down on it now. So anyway, I'll take your questions.
All right. Batters up. Well, I'm going to kind of dive into some of your story. And the first thing I want to, and this is jumping way ahead, but I don't want to forget to bring this up. The other morning, Tony and I work together sometimes. We're in the same line of work on multiple fronts. But we started talking during some morning coffee. And like the ass I am, my head was at the podcast stage. I'm like, oh, stop talking, cut this off. I want to talk about it on the show. Talk to me about why you feel it's important to go to meetings today. Is it? I'm gonna pose a few questions, and the way I pose them, I know it's a simple yes or no response. But are you there to learn some more stuff out of the big book? Are you there for your sobriety? Are you there? Why are you showing up to meetings? You know,
I know what you're getting at. We talked about this the other day. I haven't. I haven't. I don't know that if I've been to an AA meeting for myself in 20 years. I go to Alcoholics Anonymous because I cannot bear the thought. I cannot bear it. The thought of someone walking in the front door of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time, as messed up as I was, and there's no one there to help them. I cannot bear that thought. Now, having said that, I certainly benefit from going to Alcoholics Anonymous. I get as much as anybody else.
Right. Yeah.
I need you guys now more than I did 20 years ago. But the truth is, I haven't entertained a serious thought of drinking in 20 years, and my motive for walking in the front door of that house every single day is not. It's because I can't bear the thought of somebody showing up with nobody there to talk to them.
You're not a super loud, like outspoken guy. You know, you're reserved from the outside. You know, I've seen you for a while now at meetings, and you know, I'm a loud guy. Bah, bah, bah. You're not like that. When you speak about something, it's poignant, and I love when you share during meetings. And when you share, it is. You're either quoting something or sharing your experience with it or your thoughts about what it says. And I appreciate you for that. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when you talk about why, I feel it's just so passionate how you share about why you go to meetings for the most part, you know, for that guy showing up, not to be alone. And I wanted to thank you on the air for that. So a few little questions I have.
Go.
When you were sharing about this was the first time I've heard someone compare their disease, called disease. I don't know if, you know, people go back and forth on what it is, their alcoholism, disease, whatever. How when it got bad, it reminded me of drugs the same way. You compared it to drug use for me, like almost to a T. The monotony of it, that last year, and what your head was doing was, I always say it's a terrible rat race. It's a catch-22 of you're still, you know, you got to drink in order to get through your day, and everything led to your drink. That's how you were living. How you said there was points in time in there that you could set it down. How did you break that cycle? Was there during those times before you found AA, or before you made that decision? Because you said for 10 years you were in and out.
Right. Yeah.
So how did that
it's
work?
easy. You know, first of all, I think, and everybody I think does this, or not everybody, but maybe a lot of people. You know, when I get arrested for DWI, I can get my shit together for a while.
Right.
Okay. You know, I can be on the straight and narrow for 3 to 6 months after I get arrested, especially if I wreck my boss's car or something of that caliber. You know, you know, you get into trouble at work, you get in trouble at home, you get in trouble with the law, whatever it is. I think I can clean myself. At that time, I could. You know, that last year and a half, I couldn't. I get arrested for drunk and disorderly, and I finally get somebody to bail my dumb ass out of jail, and I'm trying to get him to go to the liquor store on the way home.
And that, I think a lot of us can relate to. And there's going to be some things I ask you where to you and me, it's a no-brainer. We do have multiple listeners that never even been to these rooms.
Right,
They've heard
yep.
about it. COVID hit, they've been to a few Zoom meetings or something. I've had
Right.
people reach out to me. So a lot of things I have you explain, and it might seem monotonous or whatever the case is. We had these steps. He talked about them, 1 through 12, whatever the case. You shared about the 12 step. that you felt that's when what you would say is a spiritual awakening for you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, let me say this. It's, an awakening of the spirit to me is nothing more than a change of heart. Um, I'm going to tell you a little story. And I've told this in meetings before. There was a time in my drinking career, and I was coming back. I was coming back to the United States from being overseas, and I stopped in Philadelphia to spend the weekend there and kind of be a tourist and visit some people, and I went to the Liberty Bell, and this guy comes up to me. And first of all, I was just appalled. I was appalled because the amount of homeless people that were there, and everybody was around there, and this guy just comes running up to me and he's begging for money. And at that moment, for some reason, I remembered that experience vividly. I remember manufacturing in my mind a laundry list of reasons to hate this man. Overweight, smelled bad, filthy dirty, needed a haircut, he's black, everything I could think of to hate on this man.
Right.
Why don't you get a job? And all these things are going through my mind. I hated on this guy, and I ran him off with some profanity, and he's not getting a job. I mean, go get a job somewhere, you
right.
worthless puke. And that's the way I was. Fast forward about 8 more years, and then about 3 years into sobriety, I was at a meeting in South Dakota, and it was kind of a big meeting, and I think there was probably 60 or 70 people there, and they would have the readings. They'd read how it works, in 12 traditions, and then everybody would separate off into the smaller rooms. Mm-hmm. And I went in and sat down, and a few minutes late, and I'd been sober about 3 years. And a few minutes late, the door opens, and this guy comes in, and he was exactly like the guy that I saw in Philadelphia. Exactly. And after the meeting was over, I was pushing people out of the way to go talk to the man to see if I could do something for him. Well, you see my point? It's a change of heart.
Okay, I see.
It's a change from me seeing this guy and making a list of things in my mind to hate on him versus me seeing the same guy and trying to push people out of the way so I could get over there to talk to him and see if there's anything I could do to help him. To me, that's a spiritual awakening, and it's the result of these steps. It is because of these steps, I think we get a change of heart.
Right, and this is a side, a different subject even. They say this, you would be able to correct me how I'm wording it. This is a life, or this is a program, or a life program. This could be utilized by people, not just alcoholics. In the book, it's worded somewhere in there about this could be a teaching, Jesus, what am I trying to get at? Anyone could benefit from
right. It has its benefits for all.
For all, yeah. You don't have to be an alcoholic to get these benefits. You don't have to be a drug addict to get these benefits. And I believe a lot of the different fellowships out there stem from these 12 steps. The mother.
Yeah, every last one of them.
Yeah. And so, kind of sticking with the steps, we have a question that always comes up is, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. I know you just shared your story, but answer to me what that means to you and how that looked for you.
One of the things that really helped me when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I said it before. First of all, and I think everybody else in the world does this too. I had manufactured in my mind throughout my life what I thought an alcoholic was. And it's the guy that's, he's homeless and he lives in a dumpster.
Fat, smelly, no job. Yeah.
Right, he's nothing, and he's got, nothing but the clothes on his back, and he's drinking out of a paper bag, and, that's what I had envisioned in my mind. and I did not fit up to that criteria. That's why it was so. That was why it was so hard for me to admit that I was an alcoholic.
I'm not as bad as that guy.
Right. But then another thing that helped me a lot was when I looked at step one, and I looked at. I had to redefine these words. I had to redefine the word powerless, and I had to redefine the word unmanageable. Let me just do the unmanageable part first, because I've been meaning to get back to this. Remember when I told everybody at the beginning how I had these visions for my life?
Yes.
I had this vision of a good education and a home and a wife and 2 kids and a dog, and not one damn thing on my list came true. Nothing. 0% of my lifelong plans came true. Let me tell you what that is, sports fans. It's unmanageability. I could not manage my own life. But see, I never understood that. I didn't understand that until it was explained to me in a fashion that I could identify with. Unmanageability. And that's one of my encouragements for everybody, is to take a very careful look at that unmanageability. And I had to look very carefully back over my life, even long before I took my first drink, and see how, where was I a good job at managing anything? And the answer is pretty few and far between spots. The big book says, is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness from this life if only he manages well? And I lived my life by that. It's like, if I just manage this well, if I pay my bills and I go to work and I manage my salespeople on time and I make my wife do what I tell her to do, and if I manage my life well, everything will be rainbows and bunnies.
Yeah.
Okay, well, bad news, everybody. Didn't work out that way for me. So anyway, this the powerlessness. Let me hit on that for a minute too. One more word that I had to look very carefully at and had to try to learn what that meant. Powerless. And I would think back to the previous 10 years where I could shut the faucet off on booze for 3 or 6 months at a time, and under whatever the circumstance was at the time that I wasn't paying attention to, and to try to realize my powerlessness. And let me bring up again the example that I brought up from when I was in high school. I'm drinking 6 beers, and then 6 months later I'm drinking 10 beers, and 6 months after that I'm drinking 12 beers and 5 shots, and this powerless thing. Later on in life, I'm insulin dependent, and I remember vividly one time walking into a drugstore in Kansas City to buy insulin, and I remember vividly heading towards the pharmacy counter, looking to my left and seeing all the booze, walking straight over to the booze, getting 2 bottles of bourbon, and leaving the store with no insulin, but I had bourbon. Now, how is that powerless? Well, I think it kind of is. So I just let me encourage everybody that's listening to look very carefully at those words, the powerless word and the unmanageability word, and think very carefully about how those affect our lives, because it affected mine, but I never really realized it until I was helped and shown how to look at those words appropriately.
So powerless, lack of ability, influence, or power. The feeling of powerlessness due to poverty. It's an definition, but the definition of powerlessness is lack of ability. I'm in for insulin. I walk out with bourbon.
Right, yeah.
You didn't even have the ability to get your insulin.
I was so distracted by the alcohol. And in the big book, where in the doctor's opinion, where it says that we get the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once.
Yep.
Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this feeling.
Yeah.
As soon as that first, it's like, everything's gonna be okay, dude.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be okay. In Kansas City, at the first bar that I was telling you about on the way home, it was a great big bar. It was giant, and of course, all the bartenders knew me because I tipped the shit out of them, and that it was. I'd walk into the front door of that, and they would see me coming, and they would put out a big old glass on the bar and fill it with ice and start pouring the bourbon. I haven't even touched the booze yet, and I get the same feeling. Everything's gonna be okay, dude. And I hadn't even touched it yet. Now, to me, that's powerless. You know, who's running the show there?
Yeah.
Is it me or is it the booze?
That's wild to even explain it that way too. We have a guy that he's been on the show a few times, and he goes to men's meeting. A guy, John B, and he explains it almost to the T how you just did too. It's like that, you know. But we find that in other ways now. Yeah, facts is right. You said until it was explained to you in a different way. These words. Who was it that explained these to? Is there a sponsor, or like, what does that look like for you? Did you get a sponsor? Did you work these steps? I know these are trivial and probably a no-brainer for guys like us, but what did you mean when you said tell us explained to by whom?
This first of all, let me say this. I sobered up in small town South Dakota.
That's right. Yep.
And things are exceptionally different back there than they are around here. And I'm reluctant under most circumstances to talk about this, but I'm going to do it right now. First of all, I don't like the word sponsor.
Okay.
Because it's so. Most of what I see around sponsorship around this part of the world, it's more like indentured servants. Mm-hmm. And I hate what I see. When I asked a man to help me with the steps, here's what he said. Yes. But when we go through the steps, we're done. Don't call me every day. Don't pester me. If you have a problem, try to figure it out on yourself. And if you can't, then you call me. We'll talk about it later. And when we're done with the steps, we are done. You are going to grow up and become an adult. And once we're done going through this book, you are on your own.
I'm over here chuckling away because
it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I see people running around, oh, I've been sober 28 years, and I have a sponsor and a grant sponsor and a great-grand sponsor. And I'm like, fuck, so what? When did you become an adult? Why don't you grow up and become your own human being instead of relying on somebody? You know, that's this. One of the things I think that gets missed in Alcoholics Anonymous is personal responsibility and becoming an adult. It's about me taking responsibility and doing all the things that I spent 25 years avoiding. Mm-hmm. And it's up to me to make my own decisions. It's up to me to take the beating if my decision is bad. And I get that this is arguable. I get it.
100%, and I love it.
Right, and I don't care. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Whereby, once we went through the book, Dennis was the guy's name, Dennis R. And he, thankfully enough, he died, I think, holy mackerel, 13 or 14 years ago now, a good long time. And he helped a lot of guys with the steps, a whole bunch of them. And I think he was sober 31 or 32 years upon his passing.
And he's the one who gave you this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
He's the one that told me that I was going to be on my own after I went through the book with him, and I'm forever thankful for that.
But you know what? You said before you even, this might be an arguable thing. Before that, you proceeded with saying, it's time to grow up, become your own person. And that's what I love about you. You figured out what works for you. You figure out from what I've seen, you've got your own mindset on the way things work, and through your own trials and your own errors, whatever, you see what makes sense to you, what you've seen worked for you, and you stand on it.
Right. Yeah.
And like you said, if someone wants to argue, I have returning guests that come on once a month. They run a 4-step workshop out of here. Rick and Jesse, he's been doing it for 20 years or whatever. And he'll tell you that transcendental meditation is what works the best for him. But we had a show, I don't know, a couple months ago. Weird sponsorship came up, and he started with saying this is not the popular belief, and went on to say basically exactly what you just said. And there's because, and he kind of worded as he's been here, around the same time. He's seen how it's evolved into what you're seeing a lot of more today with, I got to be in between on these. Sponsorship is being misused. I'm not wording it right. I like how you see it and your take on it. Let's put it that way. I do. And you back it up with what's worked for you. And I've heard in the meeting, our meeting, a men's meeting is, and pardon my language, it's time to grow the fuck up.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry it hurt your feelings, but I'm not sorry.
Right. Yeah. I'm not. I'm pretty unsorry.
Yeah. It's time to grow the fuck up. It's unfortunate we got to a point that someone had to remind me that it's time to grow up and.
Right. I was 35 years old and I was acting like I was 12, and I'd been doing it for 20 something years, and it is time for me to become an adult, and one of the things it talks about in the 12 by 12 is how that we have unhealthy dependencies upon other people. Let me tell you, just take a hard look at most sponsor-sponsee relationships, and I think that a lot of that needs to be closely examined. Because and that's just, once again, opinions are like assholes, and I got one, and I see a lot of unhealthy stuff going on that I would not, I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't substantiate it in any way.
I like the opinions are like assholes. We all have them, and they all stink. Opinions.
Right.
So you're just being more couth about it. No, I agree. And I know we weren't looking if I agree or not, but yeah, with the sponsor-sponsee relationship, my sponsors, same deal, took me through the steps. And you know what? He didn't make any mention of it, but I made a friend out of it, and we speak. It's not who I talk to every day, but I can reach out to him anytime I want. And he's also the guy who says, did you talk to your higher power about it? If I call him with a problem.
Right.
And he doesn't give me an answer. Did you take some inventory? He gives me the things that usually I've been told once or twice before by multiple people what to do and how to get through these things. And if I didn't pick it up while going through these steps with someone to help me get through them, that's on me, not him.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of this, gosh, I would like. Yes, I'm going to send you a different show. So I want you to just another outtake. I love it. That's what I love about these, like our men's meetings. And I talk about this. Now I'm kind of going sidetracking, but you go to 5 different churches, 5 different pastors, read the same verse. You're getting 5 different definitions.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I love about our men's meetings.
I agree. And you go through that men's meeting is strong. And I think one of the reasons that it's strong is that, first of all, there's a bunch of guys running around there that have been sober a long time. And there's a bunch of guys running around there that are, my kind of guy, which is a big book thumper. That's what I try to be. And most of the time, not all, but most of the time when you go to that meeting, it's people will read a paragraph out of that book, and somebody else raise his hand. It's his turn to say something. He'll start talking about, this is what happened to me. And he'll tell you exactly what happened to him out of the book, and it's pertinent and it's relevant. And it's easy to identify with. And I just think it's so valuable.
I was gonna kind of go into that in a little bit, but I'm gonna do it now. Is your meeting, your recovery, your life today? What does that look like? I know what it looks like. I bugged you about all the time. Where are you going tonight? Do you go to meetings once? Do you just do that Thursday men's meeting that I go to once a week?
I tried to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous every single day.
And how long have you been doing that?
21 years. I don't make it every single day, but I try. I think in the last 21 years, I've been to about 7,000 meetings. About.
But you know what? Relate that to to your drinking. That previous 21 years. How many nights did you drink? Probably. You see where I'm going,
right? Yeah. I mean, I drank 7 days a week.
There you go.
I mean, I drank 7 days a week. And I let me just say this. At the end of how it works, it says that that our personal adventures before and after. See, which it begs a number of questions, but to me the point is this: it's like before I sobered up and after I sobered up, I'm still an alcoholic. I still need Alcoholics Anonymous. I need you guys. I need the exposure. I need to go to AA, and I need to be there, more importantly than anything, to be there for some guy that's new. And I mean, that's why we all have to be there.
Yeah, and I know that this is your life. I mean, and you choose what you want to do. You go out of town. You work out of town. You're someone who doesn't know about recovery, and they just heard you say, "I go to a meeting every night of the week." You choose to do that, though.
I do, yes.
Right. What's advice? No, I don't. That's a scary word to say in this program. What do you tell a newcomer who's walking in, not sure, they're on the fence, they just showed up? What do you do? What do you say? How do you interact with them?
Generally, first and foremost, I do this. Whenever I see somebody new walk in the door, and I've never seen them before, I just take a very brief, silent prayer, and I ask God, do you want me to go talk to this guy after the meeting, or should I let someone else do it? And the reason I started doing that is for a long time, I sort of had it in my head that I was God's gift to the recovered, the new guy. And I felt that I could help everybody at every moment.
Oh, you just opened such a big ball of wax we're going to get into.
Right, yeah. Well, and then after a while, I realized that was not true. So I tried to let God decide. And then I try to listen to them if they say anything during the meeting. And that gives me a couple of hints. Is the guy just got his third DWI and he's carrying his court card? Okay, I got news for you, buddy. I probably don't need to talk to you. And I wish I could be nicer about this, but I'm not gonna be. Sometimes it's plenty obvious the guy that is insincere and has no interest whatever in sobering up. I am not talking to that guy. Right. It's plain and simple. Mm-hmm. Then if the other side of the coin is, I have to listen to the guy. And if he shows sincerity, or at a minimum, if he's just not even sure, maybe he doesn't even know for certain if he's an alcoholic or not, I may go talk to him and see if I can try to shed some light for the guy. And I think it's more, I'm a salesman too. I sold a lot of cars for a lot of years. And one thing that's super important is listening. I got to be able to listen to somebody. I got to be able to understand their message, if not what they're saying. And I hope that you guys understand when I say that, what I mean. A lot of times a message is delivered, but it's not by what they say. It's by their demeanor. It's by how they act. It is their voice inflection, what's written all over their face. Is this guy confused? Is he hopeless? Is he destroyed? That's the one thing that's usually pretty clear. The guy that just got off of heroin for 5 years or whatever this guy's probably screwed up bad. The guy that's in trouble just got his first DWI. You know, I don't know. Maybe he's an alcoholic. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. But he's here. And if I get, I close my eyes and I ask God if I should help try to go talk to this guy, and I get a sense, I get a feeling. Should I talk to the guy? Yes or no? And I will or I won't, depending on what the sense is.
Yeah, you kind of answered my question, and this is a question that I'm hopping way ahead in this line of questionings. Praying, you say, you know what? No, we'll get to that. I know the answer because you just shared about it, but do you have a higher power, and what does that look like in your recovery today, if you do have one?
Of course I have one. I was saying this last night in the meeting. It was so, and I think it. Let me describe it like this. My higher power has changed and evolved over the years. Mm-hmm. When I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, my higher power was anybody who could stay away from a bottle of bourbon for a day. And I'm not shitting you.
Right.
I mean, anybody that could stay away from a bottle of bourbon for a day was my higher power. And by default, Alcoholics Anonymous, the members of Alcoholics Anonymous became my higher power. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I believed in God. Also, I believed that no amount of love or money would have convinced me that God gave a shit about me.
Oh.
I didn't believe it, not for 1 second. Not for 1 second did I believe it.
Kind of hand in hand with, you said from the earliest age you felt different or not part of, or how you shared about that
being broken.
Being broken.
Yeah,
Did
but
this kind of go with that too, or no?
Not at all.
Okay. So
I always, we went to church when I was a little kid and stuff, but it wasn't really anything of any magnitude or any, no lasting impressions or anything of that nature.
So you felt this way, and how long did that go for?
About a year. I think I was sober about a year, somewhere in there. I never know the day or the hour.
Right.
But it was in that vicinity, maybe 10 months, something of that nature. And when I find, this is to me why Alcoholics Anonymous works. It works because when I got there and I didn't know anything and I was desperate and I was afraid and I was scared and I didn't know what to do, and I looked around. And from my previous 10 years of being in and out of AA, I've realized that I ought not be paying attention to the guy that just got out of treatment for the 9th time. I ought to be paying attention to the guy that's been sober for 20 years and he's turned his life around. So that's what I started to do. See these guys running around here. They said they were sober 20 years. They got their lives together. They got their family things straightened out. They got decent jobs. They got their shit together. They seem to have everything going reasonably well, the way that I had always aspired to have my life, but never been able to do it.
Right.
And those are the guys I started paying attention to. And those are the guys that I started listening to. I started to pay attention to them, and eventually I began to believe them when they told me about what God meant to them. And it was their influence, and it was their testimony, and it was their example that turned me over about God and coming to believe that this power greater than myself was real. And you know how it says it in the big book? That one is God. May you find him now. Capital letter 1. Don't give me a tree. Don't give me a doorknob. Don't give me any of that bullshit, because it's just not going to work.
I laugh because we've all heard it so many times.
Right, yeah.
But you know what? How about this? Devil's advocate time. What about that guy that says, oh, no, I think you just said, don't give me that now. But what about the one who says, oh, make the group your higher power? Because
right,
I
work.
just heard someone say it worked for them for a year.
Right, yeah, it did. It absolutely did.
But now you're at a point where you can say, "Don't give me that shit." That
No, I mean, yeah, don't tree or don't, don't
I
tree
guess
or
I kind
doorknob
of
me.
twisted it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's to me. To me, the message there is pretty clear. By default, Alcoholics Anonymous members became my higher power, and I didn't even realize it
Right.
for a while until I could start to.
Well, look at the
I had
progression.
to make a beginning.
Right. And yes, look at the progression. By default, you didn't choose them. By default,
Right.
they became it.
Yes.
And those ones that became it through their testimony and their experiences, you found your higher power.
Right, they convinced me.
Yes. And
Being
yes.
convinced we were at step 3.
And side note, he mentioned this. Anything that you read in that big book that has a capital letter outside, the first word of a paragraph, that is a deity. It was explained to me. When they capitalize one of these things, that is referencing a higher power, and it helped me. However you want to word it, the one, or he, or Almighty, or So after about a year, you find God.
I found a real conception that I could grasp and hold on to. A God of my understanding.
Of your understanding.
And, like I said, it evolved and changed over the years. But, I can't explain it now, but I can explain this. I don't understand God. I don't understand prayer. I don't understand my reluctance towards those things in early sobriety, but I try to do them now, and it seems to work. And I don't have any other explanation than that. And it's good enough for me.
Right. And I always share this, you guys, and everyone it's me that has to sleep with me tonight.
Right, yeah.
My thoughts and my brain is the one I'm laying down sleeping with tonight in those thoughts. So I find something that works for me. And we've said it and heard it on here in meetings I go to. I just challenge you to go find something.
Right, yeah. It's got to be bigger than me.
Yes.
And,
now that's where this next question was, or the second part of that is, and you did kind of share about it, because when a newcomer comes involved, you do utilize this higher power of yours. Because that's what my question, the second part was, and how do you utilize that in your recovery today with your higher power?
I think the easiest way to sum that up, and I go off on this in AA meetings all the time, and I'm gonna go off on it on the air. There are 5 places in the big book where it tells me what to do every single day. Go do them. Okay, one of them's on page 164. It says, ask each day. Ask each day in your morning meditation what you can do for the man who is still sick. Okay, that's on page 164. There's another one on page 85. And I'm not going to tell you where the other 3 are. Find them for yourselves.
He could if he wanted. He is what they say. I don't see you as a big book thumper. I see you as a guy who's knowledgeable about the big book and knows how to utilize it in any conversation or any aspect of life and implement it. But, okay, on page 85.
Well, on page 85, it tells me what to do every day, and I'll give you another one. It's step 11 in its entirety, page 86, 87, and 88. It tells me what to do every single day. Mm-hmm. And it includes in these daily guidances to ask in prayer and meditation. So I try to do that. And you know what? It's not this big, involved, deep thought thing. Not for me. It hasn't ever been. It's like, all right, God, what's on the list for today? Lay it on me because I'm ready. That's how I'm talking to him. And I try to be quiet and I try to listen and I get a sense or I get a feeling and then I go about my day.
That's what I was going to kind of dissect it on that, and you have touched on it twice, and you just did for the second time, is if you're comfortable with it, because a lot of people like to keep it close to home or not share prayer, because you're not the only one to come on here and say, God, I don't understand it, or I didn't understand it. And we've had questions about You say you prayer. We'll just use your example. And I think you already gave the answer, but so you say a little prayer like, should I go talk to this newcomer tonight? Who answers you? What are you hearing? What happens?
I
Is it the heart or I mean
no, it's more in my it's more a sense. The Big Book calls it a sixth sense. And what happens to me is, and like on page 87, it says we pause when agitated or doubtful. We ask for an intuitive thought or idea. I'm asking for an intuitive thought. You know,
they're
if
talking
I'm,
about prayer in that.
right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in this sense, you know, if I'm praying about something or anything, or if I'm agitated or doubtful during the day, I try to just take about as long as it takes for me to inhale and exhale slowly. God, what do you want me to do here? Because I'm in trouble and I need you.
Heavy.
And that's it. You know, and what do I get for that? Well, I get a sense. I get sometimes some people call it a feeling, which I don't like that. I think it's more like a sense. It's like I get a sense of a yes or a sense of a no or a sense of a head in this direction. Let me, you know, and I don't know. It's never very clear. Okay, I think one of the things. Let me say this also. I've learned this over the years. I think that in step 11, it says that I'm to ask, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Once I get a sense of what I think He wants me to do, by default, I have the power to carry it out. I must now go do it. One of the biggest things that just leads me to all the time is one of the biggest reasons I think that most people have such a hard time with a higher power, and it's obedience. I think there's been a million times in my life where I have prayed for something. What should I do next, God? And I'll get a sense. And it's like somebody will ask me to help them move furniture, for example. And I'm like, God, do you think I should help him move furniture? What do you mean, yes? Oh, no, you're wrong. No, God, you're stupid. What the hell are you talking about? That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of. I do not want to help him move furniture. Oh, all right, I'll do it. See, I think it's obedience.
Yeah.
You know, if
I've never.
I don't have any children.
Right.
But if I did, and little Timmy,
Oh, boy.
little Timmy's disobedient. I tell Timmy to go clean his room, and Timmy says, "Oh, no, I'm going outside to play." See, I'm going to frown upon Timmy. I won't love him any less, but I'm going to frown upon Timmy. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think obedience goes a long ways towards. If I ask God for something and I get a sense that He wants me to go do something, I have to do it. Because if I don't, I'm being disobedient. And if I'm being disobedient consistently, I don't think He's going to want to help me as much.
Right.
So I feel like obedience really counts for a lot in the Alcoholics Anonymous world. I think we need to be obedient, and I try to be.
I agree with you. I do. I haven't heard. It hasn't been worded, or I haven't heard it put that way. It makes me think. We have this free will, and the easier, softer way. Mm-hmm. We get an answer we don't. That might be some work.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it might be some work.
Something I don't want to do.
Something I don't want to do. And it's easier to just, nah. I know what you're saying. I think a lot of us know that. And I think a lot of that came into before I made this choice to, I don't like say give up.
Right.
I used to make the joke of you guys are all quitters.
Mm-hmm.
You AA people are quitters. But there's some truth to that. And my thought before finally coming to that decision, that change of mind, and it was going to be work to just stop.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to stop. It's work to do drugs, to go to the
Yeah.
bar, to
Yeah.
get this. It's work. It's not work to stop, but I don't know. I'm still trying to articulate that over time now, but it's
work to change.
yes. There you go.
To
Change.
live a different life than what I was living. If I'm not drinking, to stop drinking 2 quarts of bourbon every single day and live different than that is work.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fear. For me, there was a lot of fear in that too. I forget to bring up fear because that's another question. Fear and willingness. I like to talk about those, but for me, a lot of this coming to these rooms, not to be around people or there might be it was just fear of change.
Right,
That
yeah.
change. So, higher power does play a role in your life today.
Yes.
Okay. And that's something else I need to work on is I always find myself asking those yes and no questions. It's not the way to do it as a host, but we're in recovery. I'll grow up tomorrow. So gift of desperation, we talked about that kind of, and you were thorough about that with sharing your story, and thank you for sharing that. We have multiple people thank you for it too. Pretty thorough, and a lot of people were able to relate, so I do appreciate that. Let's kind of visit that willingness. I think you shared a lot about your willingness on things, and we can tie it into almost anything we talked about, but what does that word mean to you in this program or relating it to this program? You know what? No, let me add these. Open-mindedness, honesty, and willingness. Order those up for me.
First of all, willingness leads the charge without a
Okay.
doubt.
10 for 10.
Why? Why? Because if I'm not willing to be honest, guess what? I'm not going to be honest. If I'm not willing to be open-minded, I'm not going to be open-minded. See, I have to be willing to do these things. Big Book says, I think it's on page, it's on page 95.
I
It
love
says,
this guy. Yes.
Big Book says that he should not be pushed or prodded by you or his wife or his friends. If the new man is to find God, the desire must come from within. And I find that to be the case. I had to become willing myself. The judge couldn't make me willing. My boss could not make me willing. My parents couldn't make me willing. My friends couldn't make me willing. I had to become willing to do these things. And until I did, I could not stop drinking. And willingness leads the charge, without a doubt.
I said 10 for 10. I think 8. I posed that question. I forgot, right? That's why I was like, oh, wait, these other two. And I posed it the same way, and everyone comes to that same conclusion. And you know what? It might look different for someone else, but yes, I agree with you fully. Oh, boy, it just slipped me. Son of a gun. Willingness. Yes, it's very important in this program. Open-mindedness, honesty. Damn me. I had a great one lined up, but you just got me intrigued.
Honesty, I think, is just like it says in the Big Book. It has to be grasped and then developed, like it says in How It Works. First, we must grasp a program of honesty, and then we must develop it. I think that you see guys running around here sober 20 or 30 or 40 years, every once in a while they're going to fib to their wife. Guess what? I'm not surprised. And why should I be? You know, nobody bats 1,000 at anything. But we got to try. And we're on this program of trying to improve ourselves, and if we can't be working on our honesty, then we're not going to have much success in improving ourselves.
I agree. I fully agree. Yes. I agree with. I'm in line with everything you say, and in this program, you know, we change so much when we're here. A lot of people do. Hopefully, you do. When you're sharing about willingness, and you brought up the judge, you know, these different things. Wording this question, I haven't nailed it down, but you'll get the gist of it. I've had multiple people come in here. You know what? We've had a conversation about what you feel is the only way to work in this life of change, and it's this program. I've heard your thoughts on it. You hear people say, the courts. I had to get sober for the courts. I had to get sober for my wife. I need to get sober because these kids. I don't want to lose these kids. My job. I've thoroughly said my take on it is with my own experience. If I didn't, it had to be me. It had to be for
Right.
this to work. Let's just air quote successfully. It had to be
Right.
me to make this choice. Now, with that though, the little subpart B box of this statement is people have come here and they caught the message. They did hear one along not being in here for those me situations. What is your feeling on God, how do I ask it? On that topic, what I just said is, do you believe this program could work for someone who's not here for themselves, for one of these other reasons? You see where I'm asking?
Yeah, I
Or
get
hear
it.
your
I
take
yeah,
on it.
I
Let's
get it.
your take on it.
What I hope happens, what I really hope happens, and I've seen it from time to time, not regularly, but once in a while. Someone will come to Alcoholics Anonymous as a byproduct of their drinking lifestyle. They're about to lose their children. And they say, oh, I don't want to lose my kids, so I'm going to AA. I hope that after they have been in AA for a while, trying to save their children, they turn to the realization that I have to do this for myself. I generally speaking, I don't give a shit how somebody gets in the front door. I don't care. Is the judge got you there? Is it your boss? Is it your wife? Is it your family? Is it yourself? I don't care. I do hope that let me say it like this. I hope that people's sense of priorities straightens out upon their arrival and once they stay for a while.
Right.
But like me, I didn't understand very much when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know anything.
Right.
My thoughts were misdirected. My direction was out of whack. I didn't know anything. I just knew that if I didn't go to AA, I was going to drink myself to death. That's all I knew. And I learned a lot of other things as I came and stayed. And I hope that that's what happens to other people too. But for the person that wants to get sober to save their family, come on in. And I hope that you learn what's going to really work once you get here.
Right. Yeah, and I feel this is secluding, or it's take it with a grain of salt. Is the different fellowships. I came in as a heroin junkie, and for me, I found Alcoholics Anonymous worked. I don't say better. I don't like to say that. For me, as a heroin junkie, who, and this is kind of an icky statement, I didn't have a problem with alcohol, as other alcoholics I've heard had. I didn't depend on any quarts of bourbon or any beer. It was a needle and heroin.
Right, yep.
But I found my solution in
Right.
the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. With that said, I know multiple people in long-term recovery from different fellowships. But as we shared earlier, they stemmed from our 12 steps. Here nor there. There's a guy, and I'll share about it, and he's okay with me sharing about this. It goes in line with what we're talking about now. Is we are in a men's meeting with another guy named Tony, and he's been on this show before. He's one of these ones, and I still think it was for him, but he came in to prove us wrong.
Right, yeah, yep.
Thoroughly.
Yep.
He gave this trying to quit multiple different ways of trying, and it wasn't working. And I don't recall if he half measured it a few times in AA or if it was elsewhere, but he came in and said, I'm going to give this all to show you guys that doing these 12 steps, reading 164 pages, coming to these meetings, it's not going to work. And this is where I think about that when I make that statement that someone might catch a message. Because
Right. Yep.
he is, we'll just say, as of 6 years, a success story in recovery
Right.
of that line of that topic is shit. It worked, and he was here to prove us wrong.
Right. I think that let me say this. I think that, and I'm not a big Christian-y, Bible-y type of a person of any capacity, whatever, but the Lord moves in mysterious ways. I think that the message of Alcoholics Anonymous gets delivered. Quite frankly, whether we're expecting it or not. If I know the guy that you're talking about, I know who he is. I know him reasonably well. I've always been impressed by the quality of his sobriety, and he seems to know what he's doing, and he does things well. But you're right. I think once a person walks in the door, then and they have some exposure to Alcoholics Anonymous. For me, it took 10 years of in and out. Some guys, it doesn't take that. They seem to come in for whatever their motive is, or for whatever their reasoning for being there in the first place, but they seem to catch on. And he certainly did, whether he was here to prove us wrong or not, but I don't know anything more about him than that.
So, not trying to make enemies for you. That's a hell of a way to open up a line of questions, huh? And I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was you. We had this conversation, and I think you took a kind of a hard stance on this. And I may have heard it wrong, but I share on this show. I've had over 200 guests now on this program. We've heard, like I said, from Transcendental Meditation, Buddhism, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, CMA, Church, Cold Turkey. We've heard so many different methods of people. I don't like saying claiming, that have shared about their life being turned around and being happy today. What's your feelings on? Would you say AA is the only way you're going to live a successful life in recovery today? I don't want to put those words in your mouth. I'm trying to get your take on where you feel you can find recovery and be happy in life.
Well, first, let me say, the reason that question has an oddball spin on it is not for the reason that you think.
Okay.
First of all, let me say that I think happy is an illusion. Okay. I think most people confuse happiness with elation. You know, I think of a 6-year-old child that opens a present on Christmas morning and he's elated. Okay, he's super happy with it for about 20 minutes, and then he's off doing something else. He's like, that's to me, that's what I think. Happy, to me, I think in terms of contentedness. I'm content and have been for many years. I want for nothing. Literally, I want for nothing. I'm contented with my finances. I'm contented with my work. I'm contented with where I live and my friends and my AA life. I am content. And that's always been my goal. I don't have turmoil in my life, but, and when people ask, this happiness issue, I don't skip down the street and thinking everything's rainbows and bunnies and singing and blah blah and anything of that nature. I think that's, I think that content is what I ought to be aiming for. To be happy is to be content.
Okay.
And that's the way I would describe that. And Say your question again one more time.
It's a shit question. It is. I haven't gotten it down right, and I don't know. I thought it was you. We had a conversation somewhere along the lines, and for someone to be able to stop the life of an alcoholic, the only way would be Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that. But you know what? I didn't come correct. I didn't come prepared enough
You
to
know,
ask you
I-
this question. I didn't. This falls on me. I should have had this prepared in a different way. I wanted to get to that same conversation that we had months back where I thought you said, you know, no, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only way someone's going to find their recovery. I don't
let me say this. I'm 56 years old. I have been I spent a couple of decades in a profession where all day, every day, I talked to new people. And 21 years in recovery, I have talked to many, many thousands of alcoholics. I've spoken in front of large groups of people in a variety of states, and I've had a lot of exposure. I've talked to. I think what I'm trying to say is I've been exposed to a lot of people.
Yep. Okay.
Loads of them. I think I met in my lifetime one person that sobered up through a church, and I've met many thousands that sobered up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Many, many thousands.
Yep.
To be fair, part of that's because that's my exposure.
Right.
You know, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm around. But I've never met anyone ever that just sobered up cold turkey. If they did, they're probably not an alcoholic. That's not. I mean, if I believe what the Big Book says,
Right.
they might have been a hard drinker or a heavy drinker or gotten some trouble drinking, and they shut the faucet off, but they were never an alcoholic to begin with.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know.
I think I was trying to start some shit. That's why I opened it with, I'm not trying to make you any enemies here. And like I said, I didn't have it right, but I think that brings up a real good point is, and this came up with some other topics, is we give our opinions, or we give our thoughts, or we speak through what we've inventoried, what we've taken our own stats on,
Right.
what we've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And you just shared that. Hey, I've experienced this.
Right. Yeah.
Here's my numbers. Here's where my statements come from.
Right.
You don't have to break it down in those details, but this is what it is.
Right.
And I purposely try to get outside the box and get from all
Got it,
facets.
yep.
Yes, I just, it's interesting, and I can't be just this one thing. And I appreciate other views. I truly do. Like I said, the one thing that this transcendental meditation, but he is really embedded in Alcoholics Anonymous, big time. And he, like I said, does the 4-step workshop. And some people swear by other methods, but what I've gathered out of all this is, anyone listening is I say the same thing every week, is I challenge you to just go do it.
Right. You know, I would encourage anybody to find anything that helps them with their sobriety and do it. You know, a lot of people like those daily meditation books. I think they're trash. I mean, I really don't like them. I don't read them. I got very little respect for them. But some people seem to really like them, and it seems to really help them. So go do it.
There's a perfect
And the
example.
sooner the better.
Yes.
You know, if I wake up on any given day and I'm frustrated and I'm discouraged and I need some help with frustration or discouragement, and I open up the daily meditation and it's talking about something completely different. Mm-hmm. See, it's not addressing my problem. See, then I'm going to the Big Book. You know, to me, the answers are in the book. And that's been my experience. And so that's where I stay.
Perfect. No, that's, hey.
But, I don't care if it's transcendental meditation. I don't care.
Right.
Does this help you? Okay, do it. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I agree with that fully. If church works for you, get after it.
Right, yeah.
If you can really.
Sooner the better.
Yeah, if you can Really cold? That's the one thing forget that. All right, we've got our view on that. We're running low on minutes here, and I wanted to ask you about your health. Your health, you shared about it. You're diabetic, and not just the easy one. You got the hard one. Did you share? Yeah, you were getting bourbon. So this was part of your life prior to getting sober.
Right.
When was it at its worst? Was it in recovery, in sobriety?
Right. I was the worst of my health issues have been in sobriety, by a mile. In fact, series of heart attacks, kidney problems, ongoing seizures, all kinds of stuff. And it is, I suppose, in the past 15 years. And I was sober 5 years probably before I started getting really the worst of it. And so, I mean, the answer to your question is yes, it's been awful.
And then the two questions about that after is, one's a no-brainer, but I want you to answer it is, if you were still drinking and that stuff had happened, do you think you'd be here today based on your health? Based on what you went through with your health if you were still drinking?
Let's make the speculation that I would not have taken my own life, and that I would have lived on, even through the hardships of this diabetes. I'm going with 50-50. There's 26 kinds of sugar in the human diet. 20 of them about don't even show up with enough frequency to even be counted. The rest of them, sucrose, glucose, lactose, whatever the oses are.
Yeah.
And then there's one in a class all by itself, and it's sugar alcohol. It's in a class all by itself, and it's the whenever you see sugar-free candy, the main ingredient in it is sugar alcohol, because sugar alcohol doesn't change your blood sugar. It doesn't. The reason, let me just say this, and I'm going to shut up about it. The reason that doctors tell you you're not supposed to be drinking when you're diabetic, the reason for that is because you get drunk and you do what I did. I start mismanaging my medicine and start not taking my insulin right, and it had nothing to do with the alcohol. It's the byproducts of the alcohol that fucked me.
Right. No, I get it. That's they put me on some weird sleep meds and detox and said, one of the side effects is pre-diabetes. Well, it's not the meds. It's the food that I sat and ate and gained 56 pounds in 10 days from all this food I was eating, because it gave me the damn munchies. After further inspection of this and feedback, that's what it was.
Right.
It wasn't, if I just took the meds and ate the same and didn't change my diet,
right,
there'd be no diabetes. No.
Right.
So, yes, I get that. And it's a silly question, I know, but what I asked you about with your health, and would you think you'd still be here if you were still drinking?
Yeah, 50-50. I don't know if I would have.
Yeah, it's just, it's a silly question. I know we have a couple listeners who have dealt with health stuff, and some people that were told you drink anymore, you die. But pancreas stuff or liver stuff, things of that nature.
Right, yeah. I don't know. First of all, the human body can take a hell of a lot of punishment. We all know this to be a fact. This is an absolute fact. I think that the resilience of the human body would astonish anyone. I think what the big book says is true. It says that once the spiritual malady is overcome, we begin to straighten out mentally and physically. And I think that takes a period of time. It took a couple of years for me to kind of get onto the comeback trail, mentally, for certain, and physically followed as well. Now, I think the truth of the matter is that most alcoholics, that when they come to recovery, they probably don't have a litany of health problems already on their ass.
Right.
They probably don't. They probably just need to sober up and start taking care of themselves, and things are going to be better. But I mean, you hear all kinds all kinds of stories. People that have cancer and they got this, or something's wrong and they broke their hip, or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think, I didn't realize that your health stuff got so much worse, and it was after you sobered up. And no doctor here, and it's just my own stuff. In 30 days, my beard went from red to gray. Shocked my system. That's what I've always said. Some weird shit for doing opiates, heroin, and drugs for a dozen years,
Right.
playing doctor with needles and shit. And then all of a sudden, cold turkey, boom, stop. Like I said, I went in like I was a president for 8 years. I went in dark hair, and pretty decent shape, and came out a tub of lard and gray beard and lines in my face. And I don't know. And then my head tells me shit like that. Oh, it's some big shock to my system. Your body was so used to all this bourbon and all this for so long. That was part of your diet, and then you stopped. And was that your body crying for the? That's my weird thinking. I never once sneezed or got a cold in 12 years that I was on opiates.
Wow.
Well, that's an easy way for my brain to co-sign some shit that, that's keeping you from getting sick. Weird thinking. It's the addict's mind. I know it's dog shit. It's the same.
Right,
it's the same thought that someday I think I'll be able to use successfully.
Right.
I know that's not proper thinking.
Right. That's absolutely not
It's
real.
preposterous. I know it is.
It's not even real.
Why does my brain still have this little thing of saying that? I don't. It's not even a question. I would be lying if my head didn't somehow have some weird reservation about that. I don't know. So what we've been doing lately, what a way to end a show. Off the wall, weird questions. Do you believe in UFOs?
I do.
Oh, we need more time. What do you mean? You think there's little green guys floating around? Do you think there's aliens amongst us?
First of all, let me say I really appreciate this off-topic question. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me say this. First of all, if you consider the magnitude of this universe, it is mathematically impossible that we are alone. Now, having said that, I think it's probably mathematically impossible that any other beings have found their way to this place because the universe is so damn huge. If it takes light 50,000 years to get from one place to another, how do we expect anything else to make that trip?
Yeah, I didn't think of it.
They're so far away. They are so distant. They are so, and quite frankly, unless you get into the bending of time and space, it's just absolutely not going to happen. And maybe, just maybe, if some entity in the universe is, say, 1 million years more advanced than us, they might have the technology to be able to bend space and bend time in such a way to travel between places like that. But I think it's pretty unlikely.
Or, now, here's the follow-up. You brought up Machu Picchu, but these pyramids and this, do you think there's a logical explanation of how they were truly built, and they're bringing 5,000-ton blocks across deserts, hundreds of miles, and built these things, and that there's multiple pyramids around this world? Do you believe? Well, you did just answer in a way, but you think that was done by humans?
I don't think it was aliens. I think that they did it. I think that it was done on Earth by humans, however many 8,000 years ago, and we just simply don't know how they did it.
I had someone on here say, well, and it made sense. We had technologies that went away, that died off, got buried somehow.
Could have been, yeah.
Like not fresh start, but we started over again, cycle. I've heard lots of different takes on it. I agree with the universe. It's endless. It's
right,
infinity, correct? Like there's no.
It's getting bigger.
We haven't found a end.
Right.
I mean, all right. The very last one. Do we have a round Earth or a flat Earth? I had a guy argue the shit out of me on this one.
If we had a flat Earth, my cat would have knocked all the shit off the edge of it already. So I know for a fact it's round.
Oh, I love you, Tony. All right. 2218. This is the place that we talk about recovery. We have multiple meetings. We do something called the Ride for Recovery. And what that looks like here at 2218 is the 5th annual Ride for Recovery at the world's longest running Alano. Let me just kind of tell you guys a little bit about it. I'm going to call Brad after the show, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, make sure he's still cooking up some delicious breakfast. We'll be doing the podcast from there. If you want to be on the show, reach out to me. This show is your show. It's not my show. It's a recovery podcast, meaning anyone in recovery or anyone looking to get into recovery, come be on the show. If you got ideas for it, if there's someone you want to hear on the show or some angle you want me to take or some direction you want the show to go, just reach out to me. It's like I say, it's if it were left to me, this would be a black and white show with two cups and a string. So, real quick here. It is June 24th. It's the last Saturday of June. It's the fifth annual Ride for Recovery. The day starts at 8 a.m. over at St. Paul Harley. We registration there for the bike ride, $5 donations. You can still show up. You don't have to be on the bike ride. I'm going to be there, and I won't be riding my motorcycles. So if you want to, you know what, if you're endorsed and you just don't have a bike, talk to me. I got a spare one. We'll get you out there on the ride. All right, bike ride starts at 9:40 or at 10. They kickstands up at 10. We do a little riders meeting at 9:45. There are road guards. We pray over the bikes. We go over a little safety stuff. Brad will feed us. Check it out. Be there. Then the festivities kick off here at the club at 12 noon. And then we got music all day long. The auction begins at 1 p.m. Happy Wednesday takes the stage. We got Vic on the barbecue, firing up good eats. He's a barbecue grill master. So check that out. Zoo Factor at 5 p.m. 6:30, we have a featured speaker. 8:30, we have the All-Star Jam hitting the stage. And then all day we're also doing fun activities, 50-50 drawings and raffles and auctions and all sorts of good stuff. Silent auction. That all ends up at 8:30. The silent auction closes. At 9 p.m., the auction and raffle are announced and the drawings. The admin is $20. Administration's $20 for the wristband in advance. Otherwise, $25 at the door. We will be doing the show from the parking lot all day as well. So come on down, get on the show, or come watch me look like a yahoo on the air. A couple meetings that are newer to the club. We got the high noon meeting in the auditorium every day at noon. And then we also have a newer meeting called Friends of Dorothy. It's at 8 p.m. on Fridays here at 2218. And this is a open mixed AA meeting for anyone. However you identify, you're welcome. It's an LGBTQ+. That means anyone and everyone is welcome. So come check that out. It is a good meeting, getting some traction. Like I said, there's tons of different AA meetings throughout the day, open, closed, men's, women's, mixed. If you want to start a meeting here, get a hold of me or come talk to someone at the front desk. We have a Saturday night speaker meeting. If you want to come tell your story, come on down. There's a fill-up sheet, and you can come tell your story. Requirements 1 year, and actively working a program of recovery. Also, Jane's Cafe. We do some good foods here, good eats. And what that looks like is Jane is firing up the grill. It's not a grill. She's making tacos on April 1st at 5:30 to 8 p.m. Soft shell tacos with all the fixings, onion, shredded cheese, sour cream, lettuce, all that good stuff. So come check it out. And then I will find out when the next breakfast is. I got a message saying I gave the wrong information about that, but once a month, I know we do a pancake breakfast, and it's awesome. I told a corny story about it earlier, but bottom line is I ended up having the breakfast, and it's one of the best pancakes I've ever had in my life. So come check that out. Woo, sorry about that noise. And Phoenix, one of the NA meetings here, they're starting a game night. Or they already started it. They've done one, and they're going to continue to do them. It's the second and fourth Sunday of every month. It's a game night. So come check it out down in the auditorium. Shit, I didn't get the times. I'll get you guys the times. I'll have a show again before they have another one. And last but not least, next week we have got a heck of a show. Oh, buddy, Jeff S. is going to be on the show. He's never been on the show. He's a fellow motorcycle rider who owns his own company. He's been in recovery. He's been giving it a shot of recovery for I don't know how many years. I'll leave the story to him to tell you, but I think he's got it this time. It's a terrible thing to say. But check in next week, and you will hear me talking with Jeff S. Tony, we're going to wrap this up. What are you grateful for, bud?
Everything that I don't have to do anymore. Being the guy that once would just stand in front of a bottle of bourbon sobbing because I didn't want to drink it, but I did. I'd open it up and drink it anyway. For not having the monkey on my back, and for being shown by people. They showed me people in Alcoholics Anonymous showed me how to change my life, and I did what they asked me to do, and my whole life is better because of it, and every single bit of my life I'm grateful for.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, Tony, I appreciate you. I love you. I enjoy when you speak. I've told you this more than once. Thank you for giving me the time and coming back on the air. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, boys and girls, damn, when I started advertising, people bounce. We went from an average of 28 listeners between YouTube and this to 0. With
Nice.
Somewhere in between me trying to pump up the club. I'm going to do a pre-record on that stuff. All right. I love you guys all. If you're struggling, please reach out. I know we talked about some suicide stuff earlier. Please reach out to the hotline if you do not have some medical professional stuff. You're worth the fight, man. If you're struggling, just reach out, man. If no one's told you, let me be the one to say it. I love you. You are worth the fight. You're worth